If you had asked me 1 year ago if I'd be buying a Vespa, I would have said no way. If you had asked me 2 years ago if I'd be riding a 300cc, again, no way. I wasn't sure that I was willing to pay the money for the bigger engine, the money and hype around a Vespa, and here we are. Subscribers here might have already seen a sneak peek, but today we're going to talk about my new 2021 Vespa GTS. It's an HPE Racing 60s model. I live near an interstate and I decided that a bigger engine would give me more flexibility. So I decided to look around and not really sure on what I wanted because I know I love the Vespa iconic look. I didn't think I'd be willing to pay the money for the Vespa. I even looked at motorcycles as part of this process. And I drove hundreds of miles multiple times in order to get my hands on every maxi scooter that I could. I had been shopping for a scooter for over 6 months before landing on this scooter. So there were significant updates moving into the 2020 300 editions, but moving into 2021, 2022, nothing significant going on with the motor. I love this black trim kit. I know it's version dependent. Sometimes there's chrome, sometimes there's black, and like on this one, there's chrome mirrors that I'm definitely gonna change out when I get over the impact from buying the scooter to start with, but you can buy pieces to interchange. I'll drop a link below for the place that has some great accessory availability for you. And there is a chip in the key for part of the immobilizer equipment. There is a second key that comes with it that basically the dealer emphasized, do not lose this key. So apparently it's a big pain in the butt if you do, but hopefully it keeps my scooter from being stolen, but I have a feeling I'm just gonna lose a key and have a pain in the butt. This scooter has such a smooth ride. We're gonna blame some of this on the whole steel unibody chassis scooter situation here. But anytime you're looking at this 300cc range, I found all the scooters to be quite smooth. But the difference is that this scooter is still a scooter and very nimble. Some of the other scooters just felt large, bulky, and while they definitely still had zip and the speed, they didn't feel zippy and like peppy when you're coming off of a stop sign. In styling, I absolutely love the look of this GTS. So when I started looking into purchasing this Vespa, and I'm like, okay, this is actually a scooter in the running, I wasn't sure. I was kind of overwhelmed by the number of different model options. So there's like 300, 300 Super, 300 Super Tech. And then like, there was just so many options. And so the really subtle differences in trim and accessories and primarily some minor suspension differences. If you'd like a video on that, just comment below and I'll share what I found whenever I started looking into this. You can decide which one matters. But this styling on this scooter, like that's really a giant appeal for me personally. But even though this scooter is quite a bit larger than the other scooters I've ridden, it doesn't feel unapproachable, if that makes sense. I was definitely worried about the size of this scooter in regards to my frame. I'm 5'6" on a good day, but it hasn't been too bad. It has been an adjustment moving up from my what seems like a tiny buddy kick next to this scooter, but it's only 20% larger compared to the Vespa 50cc and 150cc models. And I hear this a lot. It seems like shorter riders, especially women, are concerned about having a bike that's too big for them. I was totally in that space, but I do want to preface this with saying if you were in a dealership sitting on a scooter, it is not the same experience as whenever you're getting out to ride the scooter. You're on a center stand normally at the dealership and you're feeling uneasy, especially if you're a new rider. It is not the same. So while I was initially concerned, and that's how I landed on the buddy kick, I ultimately wish I had just bought this scooter to start with. I turned on my blinker. Do you hear it? Me neither. It's awesome. I have found that I've forgotten, but there is a blinker that blinks on the dash to kind of be like, hey, dummy, turn it off. I know it's probably called a signal indicator, but we're gonna call it a dummy light because I just did it again. So I'm still in the honeymoon phase of the scooter, but I did think long and hard through some of the cons of it to be objective in talking about it with you guys. One of those things is I wish I had a little bit larger fuel capacity. When I think about a longer trip that's gonna have me outside of the Houston area, I just feel like a little extra buffer in between towns could be handy. Not a showstopper, just one of those would be nice kind of things. Another thing I had no idea that I hated was this side stand. As soon as you put it down, the motor turns off. It won't start if it's down, and it's probably a bad habit that I started whenever I was riding the kick and the like, but it's totally annoying. Another thing I'd like is if a full face helmet would fit in the underseat storage box. If you subscribe here, you know I'm a full face helmet rider, and I would like to pop it in there because we do get stray rainstorms whenever I'm in at work or what have you, and I just kind of have to come out and ride around in a wet helmet, which is very uncomfortable, particularly if it's cold. Really, when we're talking 300cc, it should fit inside of the underseat storage box, in my humble opinion. And a bigger glove compartment wouldn't hurt anything. And I do notice that any of the gear that I put inside of the glove compartment ends up quite hot by the time I get wherever I'm going. So I don't know what that would look like on a longer trip. The price. Every other 300 scooter that is available is nowhere near the price of this Vespa. That said, I've clearly bought into this iconic Vespa culture, what have you. Hold on to that thought for a minute. I'll talk at the end about who this scooter would be good for in relation to this price conversation. I still don't see me getting on the interstate with these 12-inch wheels. So there is no reason that I cannot get on an interstate, and I can see myself hopping on and hopping off for some certain situations. But ultimately, this scooter feels very, very stable. I'm just nervous when I think about the 12-inch wheels and some of the potholes that I run across whenever I start looking. And then looking at these high rates of speeds with all the textures that I would see on the freeway when I was commuting by bus, I'm like, I don't know. But I had to think through all of that as part of this whole scooter buying journey. And part of the appeal of scooters are the back roads. So, of course, taking the back roads, well, at first, not hitting an interstate almost sounds like a con courtesy of the 12-inch wheels. It's actually a perk for me, and that's ultimately why I decided not to get something different. But part of it was sticking with the style and understanding what kind of rides are more fun to me. So think through the kind of rides you see yourself going on before pulling the trigger on anything, whether it's this 300 GTS or not. So the scooter has a key fob, which is pretty handy, I guess, if I ever find myself in a row of scooters that I can't identify mine. And it does unlock the underseat storage box, which is pretty handy if you have your hands full, but it doesn't unlock the glove compartment, which I kind of find a little strange because it just feels like a natural thing to pop it open, throw my phone in, and get going on a ride. You actually have to stick your key in, turn it, and then push the key in, and that opens the glove compartment. But I guess I can only do that if I want to throw it in the underseat storage box. Both seem to get pretty warm, so I don't know what that would look like for a longer trip. I will kind of have to keep an eye out on that. So not necessarily sure it's a con or a problem, but it is something that kind of worries me from a longer ride perspective. And I really like the traction control, like I've already kind of talked about here. However, the light that indicates that traction control is on is also on even if you turn it off. You can't tell if it's on or off. You just have to know whether you hit the button or not. And since during the making of this video, I realized how many times I've left my blinker on, I don't know that I would remember. So why I bought this Vespa was that I wanted something that was at 300cc plus. I ultimately decided against a motorcycle because when I started diving in, it seemed like the manual transmission was somehow weaved into the identity of motorcycle folks. When I would talk to them, you can buy automatic motorcycles, but then I was talking about like an 1100cc, and that's a lot more bike than what I really felt like I needed. And ultimately, I'm like, I like the twist and go. Can I ride a manual transmission bike? Yes. Do I want to? Not really. We have a lot of stop and go lights in the area, so for this thing to be practical, I want to twist and go. Also, I wanted this styling. It just seriously, hands down, is the best looking scooter. And I understand that that's very subjective, but I really like the styling of this scooter. And there is no 300cc plus that has this look. So really, this leads into who is a Vespa GTS 300 good for, and that's gonna be somebody that really likes the styling, really needs the bigger engine size, and has the money to do it, basically. I understand it's more expensive, and Me personally, I just had to save longer in order to make this one happen. And I did consider other scooters, of course, through all of this. I really tried hard not to buy this scooter, but ultimately, the style and the ride of the scooter is just sweet. So I haven't put any real miles on it yet. I haven't even named it. I'm one of those people. When I have some more miles on it, I'll definitely come back and give an update. So yes, this is a Vespa review. However, it's my first Vespa, but if you find yourself interested in like 150cc or even a 50cc scooter and you're not sure if Vespa's worth it, watch this next video to help you understand when it is and when it isn't. Be seen and be safe, scooter friend.